You have the attention span of a goldfish on Adderall. Don't scroll away. I'm also like that. And I'm not trying to insult you in particular. I'm more so trying to bring awareness to a medical reality we're facing in modern society. We are living through a mass decay of focus. You sit down to work, and 30 seconds later, you're watching a reel on Instagram or just doom scrolling TikTok. It's an endless cycle of decay. But there is a backdoor, a specific biological loophole that allows you to shut off the part of your brain that hates working and enter a state of pure narcotic grade focus. And it's called flow state. Now, I'm not trying to pile on to the overhyped, over dramatized flow state that's covered on the productivity sphere of YouTube, right? It's literally covered by every productivity YouTuber. Let's not call it flow state, right? Let's call it glow state. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to hack your neurochemistry to trigger this glow state on command. So let's be honest, most productivity advice is just aesthetic cosplay. You're either buying a $40 plan on how to get into productivity, or joining a course on how to be productive and set goals, or you're setting up your calendar to time block to do Pomodoro technique. It's a whole bunch of fetishized activities. But the real problem isn't that you're lazy or that you tend to procrastinate a lot. The problem is that your biological machinery is misaligned. Glow, that feeling where time vanishes and you feel like a productivity god, isn't magic, right? It's a precise neurochemical cocktail of dopamine and norepinephrine that allows you to act the way that, they describe it on YouTube. Now, look, I'm not a monk, right? I spend an ungodly amount of time doom scrolling. My weekly phone screen time is actually horrendous. It's horrific, right? I'm not immune to this decay. But I have realized that in an economy run by algorithms designed to harvest your attention, the ability to control your focus is the only superpower that's left. So if you can master entering this flow state, you win. You can take charge and take back ownership of the very limited time that we get in our lives to actually focus on escaping the rat race. And if you can't, most likely you'll end up a battery for the algorithm. So how do we engineer this state? Well, we have to rebuild your brain's operating system. Why is it that you can play Minecraft, Fortnite, or something like Elden Ring for 6 hours straight without blinking, but reading one page of an anatomy and physiology textbook feels like chewing glass? It comes down to one metric: the challenge to skill ratio. Flow lives in a very narrow channel. Picture a number line. On one side you have anxiety, and on the other side you have boredom. If the task is too easy, you get bored and your brain goes looking for dopamine elsewhere, usually your phone. This happens with gaming as well. If the game becomes too easy for you, you get bored. There's no point of playing it, and you might put up a YouTube video on the side. I used to play Hypixel Skyblock, right? It was an endless repetitive task of just farming all the time, at least when I used to play it. So I just put a movie on the side, and all of a sudden, I was just playing the game, but also not playing the game. I was trying to engineer cheap ways of me getting dopamine. If the task is too hard, though, you get anxious. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, you panic, and you quit. Research suggests that there is a sweet spot where the challenge is roughly 4% higher than your current skill level. Think about that. 4%. Most of you guys are messing this up, right? You sit down to study subject X, let's say anatomy, right? Or write essay X. And that is a 0% challenge because it's vague, or it is a 500% challenge because it's so overwhelming. Your brain needs a stretch, not a snap. And when you hit that 4% gap, your brain releases norepinephrine. That is the focus chemical. Its job is to build the bridge to cross that 4% gap so you can achieve your glow state. Now, when you have enough neurotransmitters released to achieve the glow state, a phenomenon is achieved called transient hypofrontality. Stick with me here, right? Transient is temporary, hypo is low, and frontality refers to the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain that houses your inner critic, right? It's the voice that says, you're an idiot. This is taking too long. I wonder if I got a like on Instagram, right? In deep flow, this part of your brain literally shuts down. It stops existing, right? You become a machine. But the catch is that you can't just decide to shut it off. You have to trick it. And that brings us to the ritual. If you study in your bed, I want you to stop immediately. If you work in the same place you sleep, play video games, and eat random junk food, your brain has no idea what it's supposed to be doing. It's confused. So we need to build a flow ritual, a sequence of actions that signals to your biology it's time to get locked in. And so the first thing is the physical anchor or the totem. You need a specific object, item, or something you can interact with. If you guys have seen the movie Inception, it's a little bit like that, an item to foreground yourself in reality and let your brain know what it's about to do. For me, that's an incredibly bitter, very, very hot, cheap cup of black coffee. I don't care about the fact that it tastes like I'm drinking dirt. If anything, it's a good thing, right? But here's the rule, and this is very important. You can only interact with this object when you are about to get into deep work or when you are in deep work, right? If you pick up your phone, if you go to the bathroom, whatever it is, you cannot interact with it while you're doing those activities because we are conditioning our brains. And after 2 weeks of conditioning, pouring that cup of black coffee will trigger a Pavlovian response. Your brain will scream, okay, we're entering a deep flow. Okay, wait, a deep glow state. Next is the sensory anchors, right? Stop listening to lyrical music while you're playing, right? SD Kid is not going to help you get locked in. That's also just like how Diary of a CEO is also not going to help you get locked in, right? Stop listening to podcasts, stop listening to lyrical music. Lyrics trigger the language center of your brain. It uses up processing power, so instead you need conditional sound, right? Something like 40 hertz binaural beats or repetitive lyric-free music. Lo-fi girl is pretty cool for this, right? The moment the specific noise starts, you can condition yourself again using the same principle we used for the physical anchor to tell your brain this is when work starts. Next step is the agitation gate, right? And this is where most of you guys fail. You sit down, you have your totem, you have your music, but 5 minutes in, you feel like garbage, right? You feel restless. You feel that itch in the back of your brain coming back, and you want to check your phone, right? You want to load up a Clash game, you want to check YouTube, you want to scroll on Instagram. You interpret this as simply being unable to focus. Wrong. Let's take a look at the biology. That feeling of agitation, that is norepinephrine loading into your system. It's what we want, but it's generating some chemical friction, right? It's supposed to feel bad. It's a little bit like starting a cold engine in the winter. It's going to take a little bit of kickback before it starts rolling. It rattles before it hums. Now, most people quit here because it gets difficult, right? They check their phone to relieve the agitation, and that dumps cheap dopamine and kills the ability to achieve your glow state. So instead, you need to sit there and stare at the wall and suffer for 15 minutes. 10 to 15, I don't know the exact amount, however long it takes until you feel that itch die down. It's only transient, right? Tell yourself, I feel restless because my brain is gearing up. If you can survive the agitation gate, the norepinephrine will kick in, and then you will start to enter glow state. So congratulations. If you followed everything we said, you're glowing right now, or how you're in glow, you're in flow, you're in glow state. The inner critic that we talked about before is dead, and you are a productivity god. But how do we get you guys to maintain this glow state? The first problem that we encounter is the feedback loop, right? Going back to that example of video games are addictive because when you kill a monster, when you beat the Ender Dragon, when you finally get your Elytra in the game, you get feedback, right? You get points immediately. You get an immediate sense of satisfaction. Writing a thesis statement, doing an assessment kind of sucks because you don't get the grade for a couple months after you do your exam. It's a delayed sense of feedback. So to stay in glow state, you must tighten that feedback loop for yourself. Don't write study chemistry or study anatomy on your to-do list. It's too big, it's too broad, and your brain can't visualize it tangibly. So break it down instead. Write down, identify all the organs in the abdomen and thorax, right? Learn about all the origins and insertions of the forearms. That's a tangible goal. It's quite tough, actually. It's horrendous how many muscles are actually in the forearm. It's quite tough, but it's a tangible goal. And when you finish these tangible goals, your brain automatically will release a hit of dopamine for you. You'll get the reward that you're after. Now, the dopamine will fuel your focus for the next 3 sessions that you're going to do, or the next session you're going to do, whatever it is, right? So you can create a self-sustaining chemical reaction. If you don't feed the loop, the fire goes out. Or alternatively, you're going to find another cheaper way to fuel your fire. The next problem is going to be RAM overflow. Your working memory is like RAM on a cheap laptop, right? It has limited slots. We're not Linus Tech Tips. We don't have an unlimited budget for the computers we build. So imagine you're working and suddenly a thought pops up. Oh, I need to buy milk. Maybe I left my stove on, right? Did I reply to this guy? If you hold on to those thoughts, it uses up your limited RAM that you have, right? And if you eventually or inevitably switch tabs to check, you break the glow state. So the solution is a distraction list. Keep a physical notepad next to you. Physical, using the most bland pen that you can write to avoid yourself from getting dopamine from those sources, right? Not a phone, a piece of paper. And when a random thought appears, scribble it down instantly to save it and return back to work. You're externalizing that cognitive load and you're telling your brain, it's safe. We can worry about it later. The final problem is the dismount. Glow is expensive, right? It drains your neurochemistry. The physiological limit for glow, is usually about 90 minutes, although I would say for me, it's like 60 to 75 minutes. So when you finish, don't immediately open TikTok or Instagram. If you go from high focus norepinephrine to high stimulation algorithm based dopamine, you're going to fry your receptors and you will crash. That's why a lot of the times we get decent work done in the morning and then spend 5 hours after that playing video games, right? It'll create a downward spiraling cycle. So instead, you need to do an active reset. Stare at a wall, look out the window, right? I've seen a lot of people say box breathing works, although I'm not personally a fan of that. But if it works, right? Essentially, just take some time to yourself. This will dilute the norepinephrine. And if you give your brain 10 minutes of boring, it can reload for the next session. Now, I've actually made a video about boring, right? Specifically about how we can escape boredom. Because boredom, believe it or not, is the biggest hidden pandemic that we're all suffering from, a fear of boredom. But in this video, we're going to discuss how we can actually use that to our advantage to get ahead and escape the rat race that we are currently in modern society. But coming back to what we were talking about right now, right? Flow isn't about working harder. It's about manipulating your biology so that working hard feels effortless. So yeah, like I said, we've made a trio of videos now about procrastination, flow state, and boredom. You've just watched the flow state video. So if you guys are interested in any of the other ones, right, all videos targeted to you, a Gen Z audience, to help you guys succeed in modern society, then go check it out. And even if you don't, remember this, stay locked in.